Now available as paperback and e-reader from the author of Spinsterella, A Strange and Unusual Romance, and Spellbound, A Darker Shade of Black comes from legendary Magazine. And you get the conclusion of the Spinsterella trilogy in paperback and e-readers at online booksellers today. I took a moment to watch the Avengers Infinity War teaser trailer at the library yesterday, and I wasn't impressed. And when I look at this Avengers Infinity War teaser trailer, I felt nothing but indifference. And that was the first time I ever felt indifference as related to a Marvel Studios film. Now, the Black Panther teaser trailer was weak by itself, but this one was even weaker than the Black Panther teaser trailer. This teaser trailer did not show me anything to grab me or anything to get me interested. All it had was Marvel Comics characters on the screen, but I didn't really see anything as related to a really compelling story. The story that they are presenting in this teaser trailer is something I would usually get when I would watch an old Star Trek The Next Generation episode, one of those two-parters that they would have at the end of the season that would end on a cliffhanger. That's what Avengers Infinity War really felt like to me. It felt like an old episode, of Star Trek The Next Generation, where Picard is in some precarious situation, and then we get the to be continued at the end. And for a superhero movie franchise, if you're going to present that type of story on the screen, that's just not enough. As I see it with this Infinity War, from what they have presented in that teaser trailer, it's just not enough to get me excited for this film or get me so compelled that I'm going to be counting down the days to where I want to go out here and buy a movie ticket for this film. This film looks like one of the weakest films from Marvel Studios so far, and it looks like it fits right in the pattern of decline that I saw starting with the Luke Cage getting shot with the Judas bullet. It seems like Punisher was the exception to the rule, and all the decline state is still continuing to go on, because when I looked at The Punisher from Netflix, that felt like something that was up to the bar of Marvel Studios. That felt like a comic book come to life. This Avengers Infinity War did not feel like a comic book come to life. I did not feel that spirit of Marvel in anything on that screen. I didn't feel that heart come to life on that screen. Again, it looked like an old syndicated episode of early 1990s Star Trek The Next Generation, one of those episodes towards the end of the season that ends on a cliffhanger. And again, at this point of the game, you need to be bringing up your bar up to a higher level. The bar dropped on this Infinity War, and as I see it, there are some serious problems as related to this Infinity War based on that teaser trailer. And one of the big problems is Thanos himself. Now, Thanos has been built up as this big menace, this big cosmic threat, and I didn't feel that threat from Thanos. If anything, he felt like Ultron. And when Avengers Age of Ultron, one of the big problems with Ultron was, yes, he was a very charismatic villain, but he was not any villain that you could be considered memorable. That's the big problem with a lot of these Marvel Studios films. They don't have that big, memorable villain. They don't have that villain that you love to hate. They don't have that iconic villain that literally defines a franchise or defines a movie. In the same way Disney movies had Ursula from The Little Mermaid, Scar from The Lion King, or Maleficent from Sleeping Beauty. Those are villains that you can literally remember who they are, and they make you know who they are just by remembering their part in the story. And when I look at superhero movies, I haven't seen a really strong villain out of Marvel Studios, not a villain on the level of General Zod in Superman 2 or a Jack Nicholson's Joker in Batman. We have not had that iconic villain that literally makes you get up out of your seat and make you say, I love to hate this guy. I want to see this guy destroyed at the end of this movie. We don't have that Darth Vader. We don't have that Joker. We don't have any sort of villain that makes you feel something about them. With this Thanos, he was actually, again, was weaker than Ultron. He made me feel nothing but indifference. But that's all related to the source material, because when I always think of this Thanos character, he was always a really flat and one-dimensional villain. I mean, his whole obsession is with death and trying to impress death. And that made me always think about him as Marvel Comics' version of Elliot Rodger, because as I was reading Elliot Rodger's manifesto and then I took a look at the Infinity Gauntlet, it was literally the exact same thing. And this is why I say that the Thanos character was really a flat and one-dimensional character. He's just not strong enough. I mean, for comic fans, they think he's the ultimate bad guy, but he doesn't really come across as really a compelling villain. This is the big problem with a lot of these Marvel Studios movies. They just haven't had that super heel that makes you love to hate him, that guy who dominates the screen. Because I look at the teaser trailer and I didn't see a character that dominated the screen. Excuse me. I didn't see that strong villain that the heroes had to take down. I didn't see a reason to care. I just saw a lot of stuff happening, but I didn't see that reason to care. And this is the big problem with Infinity War as related to making me feel indifferent. I saw a lot of stuff going on, but I saw no real reason to come in and care. If you're a comic fan, you saw things that were related to comic books that you saw back in the day, but I didn't see anything that would make you look at this film from a cinematic perspective and say to yourself, I've got to see this movie. I'd have to say Captain America Civil War and Captain America the Winter Soldier had stronger teaser trailers and stronger trailers overall, and that they were a lot stronger as films than this film. This film looks really weak, and it looks really like it looks like it's going to be in some serious trouble. It's reminding me a lot of the problems that Justice League had, and one of the big problems Justice League had was that they tried to tell us everything and they didn't really show us anything. With Infinity War, I see the same problem with this Thanos, that you're trying to tell me about this Thanos, but you're not showing me anything that makes me see this guy as some sort of credible threat that I need to care about. If anything, he's a character, again, who is very weak, and I say, again, weaker than Ultron, weaker than Loki, definitely, and just not up to par. And this is the big, again, one of the Achilles heels as relates to Marvel Studios, is that they have never been able to craft that villain, that super heel, that bad guy among all bad guys that just resonates with you and stays with you in the same way that guys like General Zod stayed with you if you watch Superman 2, or Ursula stayed with you in Little Mermaid, or Maleficent stayed with you with Sleeping Beauty, or the way that Jack Nicholson's Joker literally defined the Joker for a generation, and Heath Ledger defined the Joker for this generation. Because when you have a strong villain, the strong villain drives the story, and the strong villain drives the conflict. And this is something as related to story. If you're a writer, you know that stories are driven by the bad guy and the bad guy's mission. If the bad guy isn't strong enough, and his reasons for doing things don't really stick with the viewer or the reader, what happens is you're going to lose the audience. And what they're going to do is they're going to become indifferent instead of being drawn into the story and drawn into why I should care about this bad guy. This is, again, the big Achilles heel for Marvel Studios. They make us like the heroes, but they don't find a way to make us like the villains. And in a good story, you need to make me like the villain just as much as I like the hero, and you have to create identifiable traits as it relates to the villain, as it relates to the hero. But the big problem with Thanos is that he is Marvel's version of Elliot Rodger, and it's hard to like a guy like that who's expressing all of these beta male characteristics and these beta male character traits, and it's hard to really relate to him. I remember reading Infinity Gauntlet, where I bought the trade paperback over 25 years ago, and he never came across to me as any sort of villain that I needed to take seriously. Now, Doctor Doom, he came across as a guy I needed to take seriously. Red Skull came across as a guy you needed to take seriously. Loki came across as a guy you needed to take seriously. But Thanos, he never really came across as a guy I needed to take seriously. And he's really one of the weak points as it relates to this film. The other weak point as it relates to this film is the really bleak and dark tone. And that's something that I see is going to be a real weak point for this movie. Now, a lot of comic fans know that Infinity Gauntlet is a very dark story, But a lot of the casual viewers, they're going to walk into this, I believe, and they're going to be deeply disappointed by everything that they see on screen because they're not, used to this, seeing this type of story. And that may be something that may turn people off in the same way a lot of kids and younger viewers were turned off by 1986's The Transformers the movie, because in 1986's Transformers the movie, what happened is a lot of kids came in hoping to see their favorite characters take on the bad guys, and what they saw was a lot of their favorite characters being killed by the bad guys. And because they saw their favorite characters being killed by the bad guys, a lot of people got disappointed, especially a lot of kids, and there were literally kids crying when Optimus Prime died at the hands of Megatron. And what happened was, on the opening weekend, the movie died due to bad word of mouth. And I fear that happening to Avengers Infinity War, because a lot of people have formed relationships with these characters over the last 10 years. A lot of kids have formed relationships with these characters over the last 10 years, and they've grown close to them. And when we have a lot of kids who are in things like latchkey households and being by themselves, that really does impact them, and it can really hurt a brand, because that's what happened to Hasbro after they released the Transformers the movie in 1986. A lot of those kids, they were really shook up and hurt by watching their favorite characters like Prowl, Ironhide, Ratchet, Wheeljack, and Optimus Prime getting killed, and they were so disgusted by what they saw that the Transformers brand went into a serious state of decline for over 9 years. And it wasn't until Beast Wars came along that the Transformers brand was able to re-energize itself and find its audience again. This is what I really fear about this whole Infinity War, and I've talked about it in a previous video. And it seems like Kevin Feige seems like he wants to go in this direction, but I don't think this is a good direction he should have gone. I think he should have ended the Marvel Cinematic Universe on an up note, but he's going to end it a little bit on a down note with a lot of deaths and stuff. And I fear that he may do so much damage to the Marvel brand, it may not be funny. And when you have a film that opens up like a 2-part episode of Star Trek The Next Generation with a cliffhanger, I don't think that's a strong thing to go on. And if the film is starting to make you feel indifferent from the trailer, that's setting up for something that may not be pretty for Disney's box office as relates to this film. Because when you have a film, you want people to come in excited. You want people to come in looking forward to seeing it. And if you're coming in with a really bleak and dark film that's really depressing, that's not really going to get people to come in after they've seen all these Marvel characters in these fun and fantastic adventures. Then you're going to try to shift it up and go dark like Hasbro did with the Transformers the movie. And I see this type of disaster coming for Marvel Studios if this film doesn't really have that impact. If it's making me, a longtime comic fan, feel indifferent, I have to wonder what it's going to make other people feel. Because when you watch a trailer, again, it's supposed to get you excited for the movie. It's supposed to get you interested in watching the movie. And if the teaser trailer isn't getting you compelled to watch, then there's a serious problem. And I see a serious problem as related to this Avengers Infinity War trailer, and I see a lot of serious problems as related to this film, because again, I don't see that villain that really makes you want to care about watching the heroes defeat them once and for all. If you'd like to see me make more videos like this, you can donate to my Patreon by clicking the link in the description box. And if you'd like to try some of my SJS Direct publications, you may do so by clicking the link to Amazon.com. That's all I have to say for this video. You can comment, rate, and subscribe.